definition of what they thought Matt meant by
Just
So-
gone live?
Yeah, no problem. Yeah, don't worry. Google is not here yet. We are waiting for Google. You still can chat, no problem.
Oh yes, yes. But now we know we're on the record. You know, before we say anything.
Yeah, well, you're on the record now. Yes, true.
Now that we're on record, I don't know. I got nothing.
Yeah.
No opinions whatsoever. That's funny.
Okay, I'll send the email to Andrey. Hopefully he's coming.
And then hopefully, I think Bill's joining us too.
He asking where to. Okay.
If you take the little link off the top
Yeah.
to add people, just send him that link and he'll be fine.
Sure.
Man, I wish I had a fancy background like you. I mean, like, that's looking pretty good. It looks like you're in a real studio.
Yeah, well, I can change mine as well.
Oh, I know. Studio from the future is what I meant. I mean,
Exactly. Yeah.
do you have a green screen behind that,
Yeah.
or okay?
Yeah. Nice piece of software called XSplit Broadcaster.
Cool.
Does the green screen from. I've still got to have a green screen, but it handles all of that. Lets me layer videos as well. I can call in other sources. I can pull up web pages and layer them into the video anywhere I want live.
So you got a bit of a moving poker chip going on, you know, over there. Little chess piece. I like that.
Oh yeah,
Hey
classic
guys,
black
how are you?
knight symbol.
Hey.
Okay. Yeah. Google is here. So. Okay, Bill Slawski is not here yet, but I guess there's no point to wait.
I've still
We
got
can-
that green screen, but it handles all of that.
Okay. Okay, guys, let me introduce you, Andrey Lipattsev, Senior Strategist for Google from Irish office. Okay, you're in the British Islands. Two of you, Ammon and Andrey, and John, obviously, from United States. We're still waiting for one more expert, but I can't see point to wait. We can start.
Sure.
I have no reason to moderate or anything. I'm pretty sure you will manage. Okay, so you just go on. It's a free format.
Absolutely, guys. It's first of all, I mean, great to meet you guys even virtually like this. It's awesome. Thanks for inviting me. I know that you had a bunch of questions, so I'm really happy to try and go ahead and answer those. I know, Anton, that you and we had a bunch of unanswered questions from the last thing we did together. So if you want to ask those at some point, that'd be awesome as well.
So, Ammon, you want to go first? We can take turns, or I definitely have.
Just all jump in at once, and I'll try to do my best.
Okay.
Okay. Well, let's start with an easy-ish one.
Before we begin, I must say this. So to you guys asking me questions, great. Big hello from John Miller. He asked me to pass this.
Oh, cool.
Thanks for being here.
I imagine there must have been many times when something that seemed like it was going to be a really good, reliable signal, in practice just didn't work out that way. It turned out to be not very distinctive for quality, or it turned out to be very noisy. Can you give us an example of one of those? One of the signals just didn't work out.
Yeah, absolutely. That's. I think we
got Bill.
Yeah, we got Bill.
Hey, Bill.
All right. So back to the question.
Oh,
The question
Bill's
was
here.
about
Yeah,
signals that we use, that we try to use for ranking, and maybe sometimes we think they're going to be awesome, and then they don't actually work out. Well, I think I'm very happy you started with this one, because I had a joke prepared for it, and then we can start off on a bit of that. So what I was going to say is that, in fact, we try to take into account webmasters biometrics for a while, like weight and height, but that didn't turn out too well. But in seriousness, thing is, I couldn't think of too many examples. When I asked the guys as well, we couldn't think of anything that would stand out so much. If you look at the How Such Works website, and I guess you guys don't need to, but even people listening into us and listening to this later and watching us and recording, you can check out our How Such Works website, which explains more or less the way we see the search engine in general and Google in particular. And you'll also see that we run a huge amount of experiments every year. So very likely, any of you guys at any given moment are part of one or maybe even multiple experiments. So we're looking at a whole bunch of new things that could potentially work out, and then a very small percentage of those actually get implemented. And when I talk about, I mean, we're talking about thousands of experiments, and even given that we introduce hundreds of changes every year, you can still see that it's probably less than 10% of everything that we try goes in, and that's the way we look at it. We don't, as far as, at least from where I'm sitting, we don't make one big bet that everybody works on for like half a year and then suddenly, oh my god, this is not working anymore. There's lots of little things that we try and we see if the changes are positive or not. And we don't mind failing and failing fast. If something didn't work out, okay, you shut it down, you move on to the next thing. So that's, in fact, that's a good question. There are lots of things that we try to look at, and failing fast on those is part of the process. So really, it's no big deal for us.
So not authorship then.
Well, we learned a lot from it. That's you know, I must say that we did learn a lot from it. We've learned a lot in terms of how we communicate, at the very least. We've learned a lot in terms of how we position these kind of changes, how we, not changes, but even how do we position our documentation, how do we engage with the community, how do we engage with content creators on things that we are trying to advocate for. So even in that respect, that to me wasn't really a failure. We did learn a lot, and I think if we manage to get some content creators out there thinking about the way they present their personas, thinking about the way they interact with the audience and they present their own brand online, that's a win anyway, right? Regardless of how we're going to use it as a ranking signal or not.
So I'm going to, if you're good, I'm going to start with the next question. So we know that the search results, there's a balance between what your team is doing, particularly on the organic side, and then advertising, because the company needs to make money, and so it all makes sense. However, from an SEO's perspective, over the past several years, we've been seeing more and more of what we would call organic kind of disappearing below the fold, and there's more paid inclusion in a sense. Paid inclusion is probably not the right word, but AdWords, advertising.
Yeah.
And so my understanding in the past was you guys work separately as separate teams, and so how do you share that landscape? Is the AdWords group going to win out on the search results pages because of need to make a profit? You know what I mean? Like, can you explain to us sort of how that process works?
It's absolutely great to have the chance to talk about this. I was going to say again, but actually I haven't had the chance to talk about this with you, so I'm happy to...
I haven't talked to you about this, no.
Right, I mean, we hadn't a chance to chat about this, but we generally get this question quite a bit. You give it, what I like about this question in particular is that you give it a bit more context. You give it the perspective of you seeing what you say is organic results sort of shrinking, and what is that related to. So let me split that up maybe into two parts, and then try to answer that separately. So first of all, the separation is, for us, as far as we're concerned, very black and white. We love our colleagues, and we have like tons of fun together outside of work. I'm looking forward to every time I get to visit like a local office where I'm going to see some of the sales teams. They're the best in terms of having fun. But when we come back to work, there's a great big wall, and the kind of wall I'm talking about is less of a sort of the great wall of China. It's more like the Game of Thrones kind of wall between us, and you do not pass that wall. You do not cross that threshold. You can, again, so I'm pitching lots of sort of resources and links here, but I'm pretty proud of this one because we managed to update it recently and actually translate it into a whole bunch of languages. It's our new honest results page. Just Google honest results. You'll find this kind of fairly short 4 or 5 paragraph statement on our position on this. It hasn't changed. The reason we updated it is not because it has changed, but because we pretty much, well, first of all, we translated it, and second of all, we made it even more concise and more to the point. So that is not going away anywhere. We work separately. We are to the point not only where those guys don't get to influence the decisions that search makes and what ranks where, but to the point is when they come to us and say, yeah, you know what, our advertisers are telling us that something, well, they don't like something. I'm not going to say something isn't working because they can't know, but they don't like something. We generally push back on that very hard, making sure that everybody inside and outside the company understands that that's not how it works. It's not because you have a connection inside of Google in any kind of way that you get treated differently. It's not because you have an account manager that you can pass feedback to Google in a way that other people can't, and so on. We have, as you well know, open communication channels for the forums, for these kind of hangouts and that sort of stuff, and we love doing it, and we love being as open and as close to the people who use us and who provide the content as we can. And AdWords has nothing to do with that. You don't need an AdWords account to be able to talk to Google search. There's things like we're doing right now that allow.
Well, I guess what I'm saying is, and I believe all that, and that's what I've been told, and that makes sense. It's hard to.
That's the first
see
part.
that as being, oh, okay, another part.
The first part. Now, as for the organic results disappearing and being pushed out or being displaced by something, first of all, I can't say I've observed it that much. I don't, like, as a user, but maybe I'm a different kind of user, but as a user, I haven't observed ads replacing my organic search results as much. What I do say has been happening is that if you think about where search is, and a couple of your questions today I hope are going to be related to that as well, and where the future of search lies, and the sort of devices we display the results on, we display them in many new, I was going to say the word exciting, but okay, that sounds a bit too corporate, many new and like sometimes pretty awesome, sometimes they're quite dire, but sometimes pretty awesome new ways of showing solutions and information to our users. And inevitably the model of 10 blue links on a single page that you can scroll down and then click on the next page and get 10 more blue links, that's a little bit 1998. So that, if we're still thinking about it in those terms, I would stop, right? I would stop considering search results to be that thing that consists of 10 blue links with snippets and whatever, the titles. Search results are not there anymore. And not because of AdWords, but because of so many other things that need to be there. We need to show contextual information, we need to show information about apps, we need to show videos, we need to show all sorts of other things. So these links will come and go, and will obviously some of our results will be represented just by straight links to websites. But I'm hoping that a lot more, and as we go along and as we work with different devices, I'm not even going to mention mobile for now, but think about Android Wear. Like the way you need to present information over there, it's never going to be 10 blue links.
Yeah.
So think about it less in terms of the blue links to websites being replaced by something else. Think about it more in terms of the fact that the way we need to present solutions to our users is changing, and we hope we can manage this change together with the content creators. So as these ways of presenting information change, we can work with the people who actually put it out there to make it the most useful, to make it the most exciting, to make it the most interactive, and so on. So in any case, to summarize, AdWords is not replacing organic search in any shape or form. What is happening is that organic search is changing. Like the way we present the results and the way we'll continue to change, that's what's happening, that's what's going on.
Okay, thanks for your answer.
Yeah.
Bill, have the next question here.
Okay. We know with AdWords that we have quality scores that help influence their prices and placements. We've seen quality scores referred to in things like Panda that maybe determine whether or not they were impacted by the Panda update. I've seen quality scores referred to in a number of patents about different ways that websites might be graded and ranked and so on. Can you tell us a little bit about what site owners should ideally look for to improve the quality of their pages that might cause them to have higher quality scores?
I'm very loath to kind of maybe tell you stuff that you probably have heard a couple of times before, to say the least. But let me preface this by this. I can't speak to the AdWords quality scores at all. So again, it's the wall, as I've mentioned, and also you're better off speaking to the guys on that side because they know what they're talking about. As far as our stuff is concerned, Panda and the like, and what especially what you need to do is what you've always needed to do, regardless of where Google is and what Google does. Just don't give a damn about us. Give a damn about us a little bit in that you let us crawl and index your stuff that you find interesting, and maybe do stuff like your multimedia content, which we're quite poor at understanding at the moment. Help us understand it a little bit better and that sort of thing. But as far as your content is concerned, we should be the last people you think about. The people who consume your content are at the forefront, right? And then the way I like to think about it is that make us scramble for you. Because think about it. I mean, okay, so depends on the market, right? And depends on where you are in the world. The perception might be different, but from where we look at it, we have very strong and awesome competitors. globally and locally. And you know, I'm Russian. I work a lot with the Russian market. The reason Anton has invited me is because we've been doing a couple of things there in the Russian-Ukrainian market. We have a very strong competitor there. They're doing a lot of really awesome stuff. We look up to them in many ways, and it's awesome to be in that kind of environment. So these guys are one click away, and if they are showing content that is better, if they are showing solutions that we are not, and we're screwed, right? So I say, you know, don't think about our pandas, don't think about our quality scores. Make us think about your quality scores. Think us about, oh my God, you know, these guys are awesome. How the hell are we going to show them? Right? What are we going to change in our algorithm to make sure that this stuff ranks? Because if we don't rank it, they're going to find it elsewhere, right? And people are going to start saying, you know, Google is not what it used to be. There's other guys out there. We don't want that to happen. So it's the same things. I don't need to remind you guys that, I mean, there's other people watching us, some people maybe for the first time, so I will say this. Google for Amit Singhal's article on our quality guidelines, on our quality recommendations. I hope you can find it pretty easily. There's a bunch of bullet points there on the things you can look out for. But they are not kind of for Google. They're not the things you need to do so that Google thinks you're nice. They're the kind of things you should think about if you're a content creator in general. Right? Don't be generic. Be unique. Bring added value. Bring stuff that people haven't done before. And then it's going to be up to us, and Amit as well. I'm very glad it's not my job, to break his head over, like, how the hell are we going to make sure that this stuff shows up in our results, because this is awesome. Right? A good example of that is apps. Right? We're going to probably talk about this a little bit when we get to talk about mobile, hopefully, but think about this. Apps right now are somewhere where websites used to be about 20 years ago. There's, give or take, 1 million of them split between a couple of places which are unconnected to each other. Worst of all, the apps themselves are not connected to each other, and there's a ton of interesting stuff out there. Right? And it's only getting bigger, and it's only getting more interesting. And we are scrambling in a good way. Right? We introduced app indexing. We're thinking about, okay, how are we going to find all that stuff? We're going to work with app developers, content creators, help them use our APIs and stuff to get to that content, because this is where content creators have put us in a position where we need to figure it out. And I would love it for us to forever remain in that position. It's a great position to be in. We're thinking in those terms, like, there's great stuff out there. How do we find it? I hope that kind of answers that.
Still there, Bill?
Yes. Yes.
Okay.
Okay, I'll go back with a similar-ish one. One of the biggest things that SEOs argue about today, other than whether or not Rand is a nice guy, is how much social feeds into search. Now, we know that various Googlers have said that a lot of the search data, the social data that we know of, you know, should social networks have extra rank, should pluses be counted, should likes be counted, they're just not very good signals. So we know that. But to get around that question, what has been the benefit for Google of having access again to the Twitter fire hose? Why was that so important to Google to have that data?
This is a great example, I'm glad you're following up with this question right away. This is a perfect example of what I just talked about. Because there's awesome stuff in there which people want to see and find. I'm not a huge Twitter user, but I really appreciate what that company does for the world, and in terms of the 24-hour news cycles, how they're now less and less controlled by the big news corporations and more belong to the people, and the sort of information that can be sometimes really vital that can be disseminated through that. Even the recent events have proven that now, you know, once again, very directly and closely. So that is, in a sense, is a no-brainer. Why we need that? Because the information is there is so crucial to the people who use Google, right? So we need to be able to surface it to people who are looking for that sort of stuff. Whatever it is, from huge recent news, which affect people very immediately, to just things that might be interesting to them that are just, you know, blowing up here and there, or maybe stuff their friends are interested in, and so on. So the biggest advantage for us is being able to gain access to this source of amazing, fresh, interesting content. Sometimes, as always, as with all the content, there's a lot of noise and, you know, stuff that could be higher quality, I guess. But generally speaking, and this is where we work together, I suppose, is we try to make sure that what we actually show is reasonably good and awesome quality, and is relevant and is on top of it, on top of the recent events. So that's the biggest advantage. As far as sort of ranking signals are concerned and how social is used for ranking and such, I mean, you can start thinking about, again, you mentioned it right, I think the pluses and the likes, too noisy and too difficult for us to consume in that kind of way. Then a lot of the social networks that I know have their links no followed, for example, so that can't do much with that either. So I don't think about Twitter here as a social network in this context. It's a huge repository of very interesting content that our users really want. And
one thing, to follow up on that, I mean, if you do a site:/Twitter.com, there's very little actually in there from Twitter in the main index when you look that way. It equates to 3 or 4 days worth of content. Mm-hmm. That's how many pages we get back.
Yeah.
One of the things I thought was particularly interesting, Google's talked in the past about, understanding the context of the moment, the temporal context of things, the thing called burstiness, when a piece of news explodes, when the meaning of something suddenly changes. Is that what Twitter is really, really useful for from Google's perspective?
Look, I would not exclude that. Right? First of all, coming back to the site colon question, I try to, people who speak to me more regularly probably are sick of hearing this from me, but stop using the site colon operator. It's completely useless for any kind of analysis. I'll give you some data on what might be indexed from some places, but generally speaking, yeah, you got better places to look. And as far as the burstiness of news and that sort of stuff, I'm not entirely up to date on everything that we're using. We're not fully aware of everything that we could be planning about using with the collaboration with Twitter, but certainly just thinking about the fact that we're getting access to a lot more information a lot faster, clearly that contributes. So this is not stuff that we haven't done before. It's just that sometimes, as you said, for example, the meaning of things changes, and if we don't have something like Twitter, which provides a lot of context around the meaning and the new meaning of a thing, it will take us longer to get to understand, that these entities are now associated with other entities in new ways. So even if there's nothing specific that Twitter and the collaboration with Twitter will bring into the algorithms as such, even just from that volume of new, fresh data, we're going to get an advantage in terms of getting to understand the entities and the relationships between entities as they emerge.
So I definitely want to get to mobile and the future of search, because I think we're both interested in that. I think most people are. However, at the same time, I still have like 1 or 2 questions that I think that both myself and other people who are watching would be interested in knowing about. And one is, when Matt Cutts was around and he wasn't on permanent sabbatical or whatever it is he's doing, skiing somewhere, he would often, especially towards the end, would say, "Hey, we just took out this link building network," or something like that. And it was interesting because it would, at least we had a perception that was sort of what you were focusing on at the moment as far as a quality anti-spam type thing. And I think there's still a lot of interest, but just not a whole lot of noise coming out of sort of what you guys are doing. Because I guess the question is, it's rhetorical because I know the answer is of course you haven't, but have you fixed all the spam issues and you're just on to other things, or are you focused on, some people are saying that the next big thing is going to be going after affiliate sites, or the next big thing is still working on linking schemes. What are the type of things that at least I guess you can tell us or would be willing to that you're still like working on, or these are issues that are just not solved that you're fighting against?
John, that's an amazing question. Actually, thank you very much for that. So I will, again, it has 2 parts to it. One is us making noise. We try. I guess we don't make it, we're not as, our voices are not yet as loud as Matt's, and it's hard to compare, but would like to think that just even in the past couple of years, we've introduced a whole bunch of new channels to do that. I mean, if you look at it, we've built G+, but still, we've built G+ communities for webmasters in a whole bunch of languages. We've opened up new blogs and new languages. We've just recently opened up Indonesian and Thai webmaster forums. So we're kind of trying to go that way, do a lot more of these things that we're doing today, Hangouts, regular German, English, Russian, a bunch of other languages on occasion when we can. So we're trying to kind of, it's not about replacing Matt, but it's about building this presence and being able to talk to you guys, including about issues like spam in a lot more ways. And then coming back to what we care about and what we still, the big things are, I'd like to, how do I put this? There's still a bunch of big things, and they haven't gone away, and there's more piling up, right? You mentioned affiliate networks. The way I would specify that particular, and it's very close to my heart right now, is mobile affiliate traffic driving networks, the ones in particular which are engaged in selling mobile traffic from publishers to advertisers through a whole bunch of programmatic solutions, very often without neither the publisher nor the advertiser knowing what's happening in between, and the user just being bounced from one place to the other. To me personally, to a bunch of my colleagues right now, that's a big deal. It's something that what we're looking at.
So that's more like fighting a scheme versus the fact that they're doing affiliate. The fact it's not really that they are an affiliate; it's how they're doing it.
Oh no, but absolutely. I mean, affiliation is such. I mean, look at us. We are, for all intents and purposes, we also have affiliates as a company, right? Of course, this is fine. This is not the affiliation as a model where people have partnerships and drive traffic to each other. That is great, right? What I'm talking about here is some publishers, unfortunately, not caring, for example, about their mobile users for some reason, and saying, yeah, I don't, give a hoot. They can land somewhere, and then they sell this traffic to somebody quite clearly, and that's upsetting, and it is something we will be dealing with both algorithmically and manually. Some publishers get duped by unscrupulous networks who advertise themselves as being able to deal with your mobile traffic and convert it and bring you whatever it is, and then end up doing just the same, basically redirecting people away to some shady landing pages. And even in some cases, those landing pages might not be so bad. They might be somebody else's nice pages, it's just that they have nothing to do with the original content that the user was looking for.
Okay.
So those are really popping up, and I think they are a child of the mobile explosion over the past couple of years. So as a consequence of that, obviously a whole bunch of people have realized, we can make a quick buck out of this, because people don't really know what to do with their mobile users yet. They're not quite ready to receive them and provide them with a great experience. Well, let's just make money out of it. And we're all for making money out of online content, and we'll try to help people do that as much as we can, but not in ways that not just harm user experience, they directly harm users. And that's something we'll be coming down on as hard as we can. We'll be fighting a lot.
There is one thing you said I thought was interesting, which was you said that Google has its own sort of affiliates and interests and that type of thing, and the only thing that would make me think is that moving towards the future, particularly around competitive things like mortgages and that type of stuff, that there might be a conflict of interest between what people are trying to do organically who are affiliate marketers and what Google would prefer to display when they're looking for that. In other words, it would be my interest if I were you to display my interests. I want to show my calculator, my ad, that type of thing.
I think I get your question, but I hope that I already answered it at sort of at the beginning of the chat. We hope that it's solved by the wall that we have between them, because there's we and there's we. There's part of the we that where I identify myself with the company as such, and I realize, where my free lunch comes from and where my breakfast cereal comes from. So I know how that money is made. On the other hand, there's also we as me and the search guys.
Right.
And these decisions are not related. We don't care if people who are associated with Google violate webmaster guidelines. If people who are associated with Google in some way, shape, or form, or even with Google itself, behaves in such a way that hurts user experience, that hurts users, we will take action. And we will take. And when I say take action, it may take many forms. We prefer to take action proactively and communicatively, like I'm doing right now, trying to tell people about what's probably not the right thing to do, so they avoid doing this. But when we have to fix something, we'll come back and fix it, and it doesn't matter who's doing it. And when going specifically, you say mortgages, whatever it is, again, like there is no, whether we do or we don't have affiliate programs in that space, whether we do or we don't show some sort of results or related to that or not, as far as spam fighting is concerned, as far as the quality of the search results are concerned, we don't take that into account at all.
Okay.
It either meets the guidelines or violates the guidelines, and that's as simple as that.
Thanks. Bill, you're up, man.
Okay. Can you tell us how important you see the role of structured data, such as schema, being to the future of search Google? We've seen book now and buy now buttons recently, or we haven't seen the buy now buttons. The Wall Street Journal told us that we were going to start seeing them a few months ago. And you know, I'm curious about those things and about how much people should be using markup on their pages. You know, we bought into using XML sitemaps on pages. Even, you know, they're machine readable. They're not HTML sitemaps, but in some ways they're a little bit like this markup we've been putting on pages. They're there primarily for Google to understand our pages better.
So yeah, that is a great question, Bill. So in my personal opinion, you can't really use that cop-out because I'm sitting here representing Google. So, okay, so this is my opinion, but I will say this to my colleagues as well. We shouldn't be asking for too much structurization from content creators. We shouldn't count on it too much. Ideally, we should be able to understand what people put out there, what it is, what the relationships between that thing and the other things online is or are, and use that and build our own knowledge graphs around that and put all that stuff on there. Unfortunately, it's not as easy as all that, and you know that. These connections take a while to build, and here's where we're kind of relying on the fact that we're all in the same boat with the content creators. So we're going, okay, fair enough. You know, it'll probably take us a while to realize what this thing is. You know, if this is your opening hours, or if this is your, I don't know, think of anything, recipe, for example, right? The calories in your recipes or your user reviews, help us out. Tell us what it is in this way, including, you know, the XML sitemaps have markup in them as well. That will help us ramp up better. As we get to understand things more and more, hopefully maybe we should be able to drop some of the more basic additional markup requirements and just get to, yeah, you know, this is a recipe, yeah, boom, we know everything about it. The calories, cooking time, user reviews, without the webmaster doing anything special. We're not quite there yet. But I do believe that as far as, if you ask me where we're going with that, not so much the structured data itself as in the use of the markup is where our future lies or should lie, but definitely the connection between entities and understanding not just the words on the page, but what is behind those words, that's absolutely the future. And this is where we're going to go. And we're going to go there together with the industry, together with the content creators. And if there's, you know, there's a new thing that comes along that helps us understand it better, I hope we can work on that together as well.
Traditionally, things like this that rely on webmaster markup, I gave an example earlier, authorship. It was surprising what a small percentage of the internet as a whole adopted that. Even though in SEO we kind of were into this and we know everyone who's doing it, and it seems to us that everyone's on board. When you look at it across the big corpus of documents, it was a small proportion, wasn't it? Is this similar with structured data? Is it less than 10% of sites using it, and therefore it's more of use for training machine learning than as a ranking signal itself, because it just doesn't apply to a big enough corpus?
I wouldn't juxtapose it like that, but I do agree with you. So I don't have the numbers at my fingertips to tell you whether it's less or more than 10% or whatever, especially depending on the type of markup. And some types of markup have become quite ubiquitous. When you think about it, pages, titles, and descriptions are a type of markup, right? And luckily they have become quite ubiquitous and are being used, or alt descriptions for images and stuff like that. So some types of markup are more widely spread than others, and some of them people don't even think about as structured data anymore, although in a sense they are. And so there's probably two parts to it. On the one hand, they are still in many ways quite useful for us, not just for training, but for actual direct implementation in our results. And we do encourage people to go to our resources, and we do update our tools. And hopefully the structured data testing tool, you've seen the new one that came out this year, has become, I like it more than what it used to be, so hopefully the other people also find it useful. But yes, there's the other element to it, and that's the position where I personally stand on and try to promote as much as I can. Like, that's awesome that we have all that stuff, but we really should work as hard as we can to just know things and understand them when we see them without the webmaster making an additional effort. Because ideally, the content creator and the SEO and the webmaster all working together, they should focus on the content, not all the bells and whistles around it that help Google out.
So I definitely have like other questions I want to ask you, but at the same time I know what it's like to be passionate about where you're going with something. So I'm going to give you the mobile question, which is, and I think is of interest even for anybody who's in the SEO world in general, anyways, which is if most searchers are going towards mobile. I mean, they already are, but I mean that's just it's going to keep ramping up, and then we're seeing things like Siri and Now and all that type of stuff that's giving sort of the single answer, that type of thing. In sort of your space and what you're thinking about in the next few years, how do you see search changing? How do you see it changing in regards to mobile? You had talked about how 10 blue links or whatever. It's kind of 2008 or whatever. What's 2018? What is that going to look like?
Well, first of all, hoverboards, right?
Definitely hoverboards. Yeah.
If there's no hoverboards, I'm leaving. That's it. But yeah, you can tell I'm a little bit excited about mobile and the new, and not just mobile, but all the new ways in which information and solutions can be presented. Like I do want my fridge to order milk for me independently of me. Like that would be awesome. And maybe if it uses Google in the process to find where the best, cheapest, and also highest quality milk is, that'll be great. Probably not sure if that's going to be 2018, but then who knows? I mean, nobody saw Nest coming, and then now it's doing all sorts of crazy things to your home. So we'll see where that goes. But if we go back to search for a second, even when you think about what's even happening right now, right? And the kind of tool Google search wants to become, and say Google search, maybe Google is, well, but Google has many things that it's doing, but so Google search wants to become this ultimately useful and predictive assistant to you in the situations that matter for you. So I had an example here. Thinking about the way traditional SEOs think about optimizing and adapting to these new devices and new contexts. Think about queries. Query is probably the most fundamental unit of information exchange that SEOs use. I rank for this query and you rank for that query, and I'm number 3 and you're number 7, and we understand that. But think about what queries are now. Talking about mobile. First of all, Amit has already said, and we've been repeating this for a while, this year we'll remember because it's the first year where we got most of our searches on mobile devices, and that's awesome. And it has finally happened, and we can say it's globally so. And now desktop is secondary in all of our thought processes. So when you come back to mobile, what's immediately out there? What stands out, right? There's no big keyboard in front of you anymore. Right? You can still use a keyboard. It's awkward, unless you can thumb type like a teenager. You're probably not going to get very far. So you start thinking about other methods of input, and there's all sorts of crazy methods of input you can have with the mobile app, including video input and just taking pictures of stuff and information coming back to you. But even without going so far, let's talk about voice input. I could ask Google right now, okay, Google, is it raining again? I don't need to say the word weather. I don't need to say where I am. I don't need to say a lot of other things. I'm just saying, is it raining again? And that's a query. That's a query targeting specific type of information, very specific to the location where I'm at, which is Dublin. And, and then I get the answer, which more likely than not here in Dublin will be yes, it is, and then the temperature, and then probably what the wind speed is as well. That's probably very good for Mary Poppins type of situation. And then I will say, what about in Barcelona? And I will have dropped all of the keywords from the previous query. I will have lost, when you think about it traditionally in a sort of a textual input kind of way, I will have lost 100% of that information, and yet Google is still expected to be able to stay with me, right? I did not have a geographical query, geographical keyword in the first query. Now I do. I did have something about rain in the first query. I have nothing about weather in this one, and I'm still within the same context. And Google still should be able to tell me, well, you know what? It's cats and dogs in Dublin, but it's sunny and 30 degrees in Barcelona. And then couple of years from now, what I need to do right now is like show me museums there or show me places of interest, and then I'm off. Couple of years from now, we'll probably should be able at this point to tell me, you know what, it's raining in Dublin, it's sunny in Barcelona, and there's all these awesome things you can do in Barcelona, so let's probably go. And I'd love that and say yes, and then everything is taken care of. My cab arrives and stuff just happens. And we are like 0.1% there. I'm not sure it's going to take us as little as 3 years to get there, but who knows? But if you think about, for example, Now on Tap and what it does right now, if I had that conversation with you over chat, talking about rain in Barcelona and visiting Barcelona, but Now on Tap, we could get a lot of that context, right? We could get flights information and taxi information to the airport and weather information about both places and all sorts of this contextual stuff starting to appear. It's baby steps. Right now, it's so early stages. We haven't.
Can I interrupt you real quick? Because I want to ask you one thing, and that is, so at this point, you've scared to death everybody who is listening to this right now, because you basically said there's never going to be you haven't said this, I'm just saying that it's inferred, oh, so there's no website. Google gives me all the answers all the time, and I keep going. At what point will there be a future where it might make sense, or you will still send somebody to a website or an app? It might be that the future is we send you to an app or.
But give me a sec here.
Okay.
Everybody.
I just want to make sure you had that.
Everybody watching us is right now, but I'm going to take a guess, and the guess that we are within reasonably the same age bracket. At least we have above a certain place, and we can remember a certain time and space in our lives when we're reasonably conscious. There were no websites.
Yeah, I remember those days. I'm that old. Yes, there was no internet.
I'm that old. When we were growing up, there were no websites. Mm-hmm. I tell you more, and I'll be, I'm sorry for all the people out there who thought I was much younger than I am. I went to university. I did not have an email account, and a website was a thing that a university had, and you went down to the labs, and then you could log in, and it was like, oh my god, there's like 3 things there, and I can do them. And now 20 years later, we're talking about, oh my god, there's a future coming, and no websites. What are we going to do? And like, everybody's scared. What are you talking about, guys? Come on. What hasn't changed between now and 20 years ago, and 200 years ago, and 2,000 years ago? With the clay tables and stuff. Information and needs, and the means of meeting those informational needs in many ways. So we moved from clay tablets to papyruses to books, and from books to websites. And we'll keep moving on. Businesses survive. Businesses not so much survive. They thrive on this change.
The difference, though, is that until very recently, copyright protected your. If you put information out there, and somebody else wanted to republish it, reuse it, send it to others, they paid you for that. And that's gone. I mean, Google is able to repackage a lot of our information by picking it up from various places and give an answer box that may give us a little credit at the bottom, but we're no longer getting the traffic. We're not getting the advertising bucks that
this is an awesome kind of discussion. Also, I think very close to many people's hearts. So I need to be really careful about the way I answer this, because it is people's livelihoods, right? And I can be very blasé and say, yeah, information needs, and this stuff remains, and this stuff changes, and you keep up and you thrive. But of course, some people don't thrive. Some people, when this sort of changes happen, they suffer, and they're not able to keep up, and there's all sorts of consequences to that. And there's a responsibility here and a balance you need to strike. So I'm very conscious of that. As far as copyright and repackaging is concerned, the way I see it, and we can have a longer conversation about it at some point, is that might not necessarily be so 100%. That advertising bucks and the traffic that people perceive might not be going their way, might not necessarily have been there. Because the sort of stuff that we would provide, for example, as a one box, as a quick answer, is not necessarily the stuff that would bring you as a content owner the conversions that you were hoping for. And I'm not going to go into the copyright because I'm not really a legal specialist here, but if you think about it just in terms of the traffic that you receive and people engaging with your content and then bringing you some sort of revenue for that, either by clicking on your advertising or eyeballing your advertising or whatever it is, the sort of stuff that we provide now in the form of quick answers, it's never going to be sufficient for a deep conversation, for a deep conversion. sufficient to get like an answer to a question like what's the capital of Mali? Right, boom, capital, boom, population. Okay, now moving on. Right. I would not have converted into anything if I just had that information on it. I would not have, clicked on an ad if I saw that, because that's all I wanted. And I got it, and I moved on. Now, if I really want to engage with you, if I'm looking for a book, if I'm looking for a service, if I'm looking for something that will then engender a transaction, Google, in some spaces where we provide services, will be able to satisfy that. But then on an equal footing with everybody else who tries to do that, who tries to provide that service, and then it's this quality of that service that wins out, and who's able to convert and who isn't. And
it's a tricky one, though, isn't it? Because obviously these questions, Google wants that traffic. Google has, worked out all of these systems, paid people's wages to develop ways of giving this information quicker and faster and kind of keeping the people there. It's not that you don't show pay-per-click, so you must believe there are some sort of conversions. It's not like if there's an answer box, we don't bother showing pay-per-click because nobody's going to buy anything. So you see why some webmasters say, well, isn't there
I can definitely see that. So that's not something that, again, it's not even about arguing. It's about like trying to see what the advantages of the current system are, and I would hope that what the one boxes also do, and I've seen that happen both as a user of search and also to a certain extent as a team member here on the search team. They encourage users to go deeper, right? You see, you go look for something like, I don't know, a movie name, right? And you go, okay, boom, I found my movie, and then you find an actor that's playing it. So what else is he in? And then you look for that, and then you go deeper and deeper, and then you end up on somewhere like Netflix or Amazon or IMDb, because you dig in, and then if the more interested you become, the more likely you are to land on a resource that will offer you a service or information in the case of IMDb, which also offers services that will finally satisfy you, and that's when the conversion will happen. And I've seen myself get engaged into those models and end up on websites. And Wikipedia is probably the worst example because you can spend hours on there, but not just Wikipedia. Other websites as well, where you start with a simple thing, and then you click and click and click, and boom, you're suddenly on the website, and stuff is happening with you. You're buying stuff, you're looking at stuff, bookmarking stuff, whatever it is. And I hope that is value that we bring. I hope that is the value that we bring to content owners. And I hope we are also able to work with them. Again, I come back to my favorite appendixing, very closely, and show them, okay, so show us this stuff, we'll show it like this. We'll drive re-engagement. We'll drive initial eyeballs. We'll try to do as much as we can, because at the end of the day, we can't influence the conversions on somebody's resource, but we are interested in showing our users the best that's out there, and and encouraging people to go there and engage with that, to support that ecosystem. Because if it goes away, ultimately we go away as well. Right? So it's a vital interest for us, for content owners, to not just to survive, but to thrive. And I do hope that despite these reservations and despite this kind of the obvious observations that you can make about the models that we just discussed, it needs to be understood that we would not just shoot ourselves in the foot, we would straight shoot ourselves in the head if we were to create an environment where content owners are not able to convert anymore. Because then we'd have to switch the entire business model. It wouldn't be this, it would be some other company then.
Mm-hmm. So I was watching on Monday a workshop from the FTC on cross-device tracking and thinking about advertising IDs and audio watermarks and things like that. And it opened up a completely new avenue of analytics and advertising to me that I wasn't really too aware of from the SEO side. It looks like a lot of changes are on in the future with the Internet of Things and devices being able to sync up who's using them, and Google being able to help us track that. And maybe make us aware of how people who might hear things, Google, your Android device, I checked on my Android device, and there's no way to turn the microphone off. so it can listen all the time. So is it listening to hear what songs I play in the background or what I'm watching on TV? Is it listening to watermarks that maybe help it indicate what those shows are, even though it only captures a small segment of time from those shows, so that it can track maybe which advertisements I listen to and then what I go buy on the internet? Is that the future of our connectedness?
Ammon is making a great suggestion there, like saying that a screwdriver through the receiver usually works. Yeah, that's a bit drastic, although I do agree with that. So you probably, guys, you need to catch somebody from the Android team on a hangout like this and chat to them about this stuff, because this is more related to them. But since you put me on the spot, what are my thoughts on that? I don't know. I won't say either way what device is listening to what. I'll tell you this. I'll tell you one thing I know. I tell you that we have a thing, and some of you might have visited Google offices at some point, and some of our listeners might get the chance as well. When you walk around public spaces, those include our restrooms, and we have a thing called Testing on the Toilet, which is a series of newsletters distributed in strategic places. And I just said what those places are, because most employees at some point or other get to visit those and see those newsletters, so they're quite interesting. Like every second of them, well, maybe a third of them, is dedicated to privacy and user data. Like, don't do this to user data. And when you handle user data, you need to handle it these ways in order for it to be safe and for it not to be disclosed in ways that are not expected. And there's this protocol you should use, and there's this approach you should use, and there's this best practice that you should implement. It is impossible to turn a corner in Google and speak to someone without at some point starting the conversation going towards user data and privacy and how to be protected. I can tell you we are continuously concerned, but not concerned in a kind of a negative way, but positively concerned and thinking about user data and how we. I'll tell you one thing. Okay, so so we make money in dollars, but our real currency is trust. Because when we lose that, well, the dollars go away very fast as well.
Right.
So I don't ask you to trust me on this, but I can't imagine it working any other way. And if we were to do something crazy, like listening to your conversations and then use that data inappropriately, well, how long would that last? How long will it last first until it's discovered in this kind of world that we live in? And how long would it last until the whole, house of cards collapsing in on itself? So everybody's really aware, and everybody is positively paranoid about it, in the sense that everybody is really aware of the fact that this is our livelihoods. And if we screw this up, you screw it up for yourself, you screw it up for everybody around you, right? And then therefore, it's not like everybody's looking over everybody's shoulders to ensure that everyone is doing the right thing. But we do talk about it a lot, and everybody's really conscious about the fact it's not some corporate principle that we need to protect. It's our jobs and our families and our livelihoods that depend on us being responsible and thinking about this and trying to make sure that we do the right thing. Harks back to the initial thing between AdWords and search. That's exactly why that is in place. If you look up our honest results policy, it's another manifestation of that. If you look at the way we updated our privacy, the whole page about privacy that we offer users, simplify it to make it clearer, to explain how we use your data, where we use your data, how you can take it back, how you can shut down your account and stuff. That's us implementing those general principles into practice. Right? And I would hope, call us out. People like you guys, you're awesome for that reason. If it even feels, not even looks, even if it feels like we're screwing up somewhere, just call it out immediately. On Reddit, on our forums and Hangouts, guys, what the hell are you doing? This doesn't look right. And I would hope, and I'm pretty confident, I have great confidence in my colleagues, that we will do something to fix that.
It's definitely one of the scariest parts.
Yeah.
I've been joking about this in the side, but the amount of data that Google have. Mm-hmm. It doesn't. It's not that I don't trust Google. It's that you've made yourself the biggest, fattest target in the world the NSA, the CIA, MI6, every spy network, every hacker network in the world. Google is like the world's gem repository. It's got to be the most attractive target in the world, and it's not that we don't trust Google. I think it's that we don't trust our spy networks not to put undue pressure when you've still got to live in a country. Until Google can float off into international waters on carriers full of data centers, I think that's our big worry, and I'm certainly seeing more and more people adopting Core.
I'm with you on
because
this.
they don't trust Google.
Absolutely, I'm with you on this, and I feel those pressures. Again, I've mentioned already where I come from, and so I'm not going to go deeper into that, but you can understand the context in which I operate as well. So there's lots of things happening which make it hard to work, and hard to work to our standards, and hard to work in the way that we want to work. I can only say that you've all seen examples, and again, I don't need to call them out, where when we as a company felt that we can no longer operate in the environment that we're being made to operate in, we leave. And we don't hesitate about that. And we stop doing stuff. Right? And we won't put profit over user trust because of it. So that's it, pretty much, on that subject.
I was really happy to see the Google Wear program canceled as being too invasive. And I think it was. I think it was a good move that it was canceled.
Yeah.
I can't comment on that too much, but you know.
I have a question about or go ahead if you since we're just talking about data. I mean, I could bring it back down to something that's less NSA spy like, and that would be around the data that you do have now. So an example of that would be Google Analytics is used by so many people, and I would say that most of the people who actually know something about SEO, that are webmasters, whatever, unless they're working at an enterprise, I think we lost them. You still there?
Yeah, I'm still with you. I just need
to
speak really fast. Go ahead.
And aside from people who might be using, Adobe Omniture, whatever it's called now, that type of thing, a lot of people are using that, and that is some seriously amazing data. And I know you don't know. I'm just going to throw out that I have an assumption that AdWords probably uses that data for the things that they do. I've asked it before with a different colleague of yours, actually recently, about the idea of you guys using that type of data, because it could actually, in my mind, maybe not in yours, but in my mind, help how you approach knowing whether a site is spammy or a degree of quality, or linking things together. However, that person told me, you don't use it all, don't expect to use it, have no plans for the next couple of years to use it. And I just thought it surprised me. I totally believe that person, and I believe you if you told me that now, but I didn't understand necessarily why, and if it was because you just don't need it, we have all the data we need, I'm just curious.
Yeah, it feels like I probably will have been talking about this to the person that you mentioned today regarding this particular question. Mainly because of the second part of the answer that you're already providing me with. I get a feeling that we don't need it in the way that it is there right now. First of all, if you look at it, GA is not the only source of analytics. When you go out, there's lots of markets where there's other trackers used that have a lot of other statistics, and so we would go, so which ones do we start paying people for that data in order to be able to make sure that we have the right data? It raises all sorts of questions like that. And I'd say that even without this data, not even so much even without it, with the data that we have on what users like or don't like about our search results, from the research that we make, from the continuous monitoring that we have in place, we have enough to be able to show people what they expect to find. And that's sort of I base that answer on empirical evidence of our users' behavior. And if we weren't showing them what they wanted, they probably wouldn't be using us. And they seem to be. So that model, that approach seems to be working. And introducing something like Google Analytics data, we first have to solve a whole bunch of user privacy issues there, which I'm not even sure we need to even try to solve. And the trade-off, without even having to think about solving that, and the amount of additional value that would bring,
It's unnecessary. It's unnecessary complexity.
I would say yes. And not all sites use Google Analytics. Plenty of websites use other tracking tools, as I said.
Right, of course. Mm-hmm.
And then what if they implemented Google Analytics incorrectly and the data is skewed in some way? So there's like no problem is unsolvable. And this is kind of the motto that we live by. And you put enough money and time into it, you probably could solve it. But then you think about, so what's going to be the marginal return on all that investment? And I think there's lots of other things we could be spending that time and effort on in order to improve, and we'll continue to work on improving what we're doing, but maybe not in this direction.
That's a much better answer than I got from the first time it was answered to me.
Well, all right.
Thank you.
Bill?
Okay, so a little bit back to the question I was asking before. I've seen something referred to as a media consumption history at Google, where Google is tracking how people use media and using that to influence their search results. So if I like watching Michael Jackson videos, I might see Michael Jackson influence my search results somehow. It was odd seeing that in some of the patents I look at, but and I'm not sure how much you follow those, but the patents sort of point to the fact that that type of thing might influence what I see in search results. They might personalize or boost results in some way.
Right. So you first of all, you're right to point out that I might not be paid for sitting there and looking at our patents that come out and are put in that big repository. I've got other stuff to do that I'm, for example, like this, which is much more fun.
Mm-hmm.
But not surprised that there will be guys on the search team thinking about this and publishing papers and even patenting stuff around this. When you think about it, there's elements of what you described that we already discussed today, even in terms of voice search and having to understand the context and the history of a user's queries to be able to understand and predict what it is that they're after. So where the example that we gave there from living in Dublin and Barcelona and the museums and whatever and rain, that's a very short time frame that you need to keep track of, and I guess we try to do that. Then you start thinking about other things that we know about users, information that we can pull into their personal results, not just their location, I don't know, stuff they liked in Google Plus and stuff like that, stuff their friends liked. So that gives a little bit of context. It's not necessarily that you looked for a specific thing, it's that you've engaged with a specific thing in a specific kind of way. We might think, okay, well, it makes sense to modify the results given that understanding. I would not expect long-term the fact that you searched for Michael Jackson videos to so hugely influence the results that you get for other things. We do have when you start talking about that, we do have a very interesting task of understanding the context of queries, which can be ambiguous, and where the results can be about completely unrelated things. I don't know, planets and Disney animals, right? What are you doing? What are you talking about? Which one do you want to know about? And if you know nothing, you take a step at the dark and try to mix it up and try to offer a variety. When you have a bit of a better understanding of what the user has been doing and what they've been actively researching and what they like and what they're into, you can try and use that to make the results a little bit more relevant. But I think it's more complex and it's more in-depth than just tracking somebody's, cooking everything and think, well, like in the last 10 days they looked for Michael Jackson videos 20 times, so now whenever they look for any videos, we're going to show him Michael Jackson videos instead. That probably wouldn't work.
Probably not.
Yeah, so there is definitely an element of trying to understand context and user preferences, and to the extent where users agree and allow us to get data about and around them to offer them better results, but it won't be as simple as just saying, okay, this is what you looked for before, so now have some more of the same stuff again and again.
Guys, just want to ask you, we've been doing for an hour. I don't mind to sit here for all night long. John has to go, I understand. I understand everybody has, well, I've been planning it for 1 hour. What are we gonna do? Are we gonna have last question, or we just say thank you to everybody?
Can I just mention something? It's one of those things exactly where I'm really loath to say goodbye to you guys as well, because I've been really having a whale of a time over the past hour.
We can do it again. We can do it again.
Can I just invite everybody to do this again? And if you'd like to invite your friends over, that'd be more fun as well. So I'm totally open to that. So like we can do a last kind of couple of questions now, but with the understanding that in general we can continue this.
Well, I do have to go right now, and I just want to say thank you, one, for having me, and thank you for coming, Andrey, for answering our questions. I thought this was really interesting. So,
guys, your questions are awesome. I really like. I mean, I get lots of. I talk to different kinds of audiences in different contexts. I must say, your questions are awesome. Thank you. It's really fun, like talking about this stuff.
Okay, guys. So, well, what I suggest we kind of finishing it now, and we will all in touch. We'll be in touch. If everybody's interested, we can arrange it again. Yeah, I don't mind. Yeah, okay.
I know for a fact that there are some questions that you guys had for me that have been left unanswered. So I owe you that, and just catch me. I'm there.
Okay, so then I will say thank Andrew for accepting us, and I thank you guys, you expert guys, yeah, you gurus, for being with us, or for being here with me, or for being here. Anyway, thank you very much, and we'll be in touch. If everybody's interested to do it, we'll arrange it again. I can't see a problem. Okay, just the main thing is everybody's get something out of it. Yeah. Well. Okay. So thank you very much, all guys, and we're done for today, for tonight. Oh.
Great. Had a good time. Thanks everybody. Good to see everybody.
Okay. So thank you, guys. I hope I'll see you again, all of you. Okay. Thank you.
Bye, and thanks, guys. Thanks.
And we're off air.